Hi, I'm Kristin Davis, and I want to know, are you a Charlotte? All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Are You a Charlotte? We are going to recap episode 3 of season 1. So episode 103, Bay of Married Pigs. It is a good one. So as I told you guys before, I haven't rewatched these shows since they came out, right? So back when we were starting to film the series, we would wait, eagerly anticipate HBO giving us a VHS of the show before it aired. And we would run home from work and watch it and then discuss it at work the next day. And it was always super exciting. So I really haven't seen it since then. So probably I haven't seen these since like 1998. Long time. And in my mind, I thought that the first season wasn't really like firing on all cylinders, I guess. Like, it's not that I thought it was bad. I just didn't think that we had formed ourselves yet in a way. But now when I look back at it, I'm really kind of impressed. And yes, it is kind of all over the place, but at the same time, it's way better than I remember it being. And also, all of the kind of initial thoughts that I had that we didn't really know, like who we were as a show, I think are not true. I think we did. And as Michael Patrick and I discussed, like, he wrote this episode, Bay of Married Pigs, and Nicole Holofcener directed it. She's an incredible director. And there's so much good stuff here. So many good themes and so many interesting performances and interesting moments and things that I do vividly remember and a lot that I don't remember. But I was super enjoyed watching it. Like I the parts that I don't remember, it's really interesting to rewatch. It's like I'm rewatching them for the first time and I've never seen them. So here we go. All right, we open with Carrie being in the Hamptons. The Hamptons, as you know, I'm sure, is a wonderful place where you're just so excited if you know someone who has a nice house in the Hamptons and they invite you out. So this married couple that Carrie knows has invited her to go out to the Hamptons. Patience and Peter are their names. And she has to retell a sexual escapade at dinner, something I totally relate to. I do think that married people, especially if they've been married for a while, are expecting the singles in their lives to come with stories. I feel that this is still true. It's kind of some pressure sometimes, you know. And I don't have a lot of personal stories myself at this point in life. And my good friends know this, of course, but so sometimes I still feel that pressure. So that has not changed. Then this really weird thing happens where Carrie comes out of the bathroom in the morning and Peter is standing in the hallway without his pants on, okay? It's bizarre. I had totally forgotten this whole storyline. So Patience is out getting juice and muffins. And this dude is just standing there chatting with Carrie, which is so strange and bizarre. And Carrie adorably handles it, you know, just really calmly. This is one of the things I'm struck by about Sarah Jessica's performance as Carrie, especially in the beginning. You know, she's very present and very, like, kind of easygoing and unjudgmental. Like the sex tape, you know, where she's just like, oh, okay, my gosh, I need a cigarette. And now this dude's standing there naked and she's just like, okay, congratulations, which is, you know, kind of bizarre, right? But I think also in some ways taken from the column, like when I watch it, I see a lot of more like the kind of bigger, broader, almost Samantha-like element that Candace's kind of doppelganger that she created for the column was. And Sarah Jessica somewhat pulled her in, you know, like when I originally read the script, I think I said this, Carrie smoked a lot and swore a lot. And Sarah Jessica was like, no, that doesn't feel right for me. I don't want to do that. And to me, that's part of why I think that Sarah Jessica was such a great, incredible choice for Carrie, is that she brings kind of a contradiction to what was on the page. And to me, that brings depth immediately. And then, of course, Sarah Jessica brings her own intelligence and charm and wit and all of those things that are so important for that character. So she's very calm about it. And then she tells Patience, the wife, about it, which is, you know, possibly a mistake. Like, if it were me, I don't know I don't know if I would have done that. I don't know if I would have told the wife, oh, yeah, and then your husband was standing there without his pants. I think I might have just left that out. But then things would probably be pretty awkward with that couple. So maybe it was right to tell her. I'm not 100% sure. I'm curious what you guys think. So then Patience sends Carrie back to the city, which is so not fair because Carrie did nothing wrong. And she told Patience about it. But they don't show that scene. And in my mind, it wasn't like she said, like, Carrie, I'm so mad at you, get out. In my mind, it was more like, oh, you have to get back to the city. And then Carrie would just be like, yeah. And then she just sends her back to the city. I don't think it was a big drama. That's how I perceived it. But who really knows? We didn't see it. So it's interesting because we do later see Patience and Peter at a party, and Carrie just chats with them like she's not upset at all. Back to my easygoing. She's very, very easygoing in the beginning, So that's interesting. And then, I guess there's a question of maybe she shouldn't have said congratulations, but also she's standing there confronted with this naked man. I don't know. What should you say? I mean, what is the normal thing to say? I think it would be to leave or run, maybe. I don't know. These would be my instincts. But, Carrie's very calm. As we know, she's not judgmental. And so she says congratulations, which is interesting and kind of somewhat like the sex tape thing of like she's in an awkward position. So she kind of tries to make the best of it. That's what I see when I watch it. So then she comes back to the city and she has brunch with us, the ladies, and I remember this scene really vividly because of the peppermill. So there's a waiter who has a peppermill, and we all have a fair amount to say about things. Like it's the first kind of real coffee shop scene in a way, where it's like ba-bop, 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 ba-bop. I always kind of see coffee shop scenes and the group scenes as like a musical number, and everyone has different notes that they're playing. And Charlotte was often like a kind of like a high note, like a do-do-do, like a flute. Not always, of course, depending on the subject matter. But, it's like a symphony is happening and you kind of have to know your part, and you also have to come in on time. So this was the thing I was talking to Michael Patrick about, where we would really run these lines in the makeup trailer so that we were on it. We were smooth because they wanted us to talk fast and eat, for real eat. No, out spit buckets, whatever they're called. We never did that. No. Because you got to keep going. These are long scenes. They're like 3 or 4 pages, right? Which for an actor, that's a long scene. And you have to do it many, many times. So you have to get all of your matching correct for continuity. So like, when did you lift the glass? When did you lift the fork? When did you cut your food? When did you chew? You have to remember all these things. And if you mess up, they'll come and they'll tell you, oh, no, you chewed on this line, not this line. So you have to remember all that, as well as being in the moment and being in the scene with the other actresses, of course. So we're at this scene. It's long. And this peppermill guy with the waiter has to show up right on time, because we're kind of referring to the peppermill as a kind of stand-in for, the fact that the naked man, and Carrie says, congratulations. See, I'm skirting around it right now. I'm skirting around it. But you know what I'm saying. So it was hard timing this waiter guy, and I'm sure we tortured this poor actor. I'm sorry, whoever you are. But he had to come in at the right time and be on the right side of whoever had to refer to the peppermill and roll. Like, I roll my eyes. I do a big ol' eye roll at some point. It's kind of entertaining. But that was one of the first coffee shop scenes of which we would film, I feel like, hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, that's how sometimes a coffee shop scene felt, Eventually what we did, we're actually in a real restaurant in that scene. Eventually what we did was we built a coffee shop set at Silver Cup, our studio. And it started out kind of like, I feel like it was gray and khaki and wood and white. And as the years went, it got more white and more white and more white. The table was white. We'd have white silks around us. We had white bounce cards. We were just in like a bubble of reflecting beautiful light. And we loved that. But we were there for like 18 hours for a coffee shop scene. So it was that was when we were really earning our paychecks. Not that we didn't love it, but it was like a skilled work challenge, to do the coffee shops and to do them well. So this was, in my mind, the first real coffee shop scene. So Carrie's retelling about the incident, and then we have some jokes about the peppermill, and then Miranda says They became married and we became the enemy, which is one of the central themes of the not the podcast, but yes, the podcast, but the episode, which is, are single women really truly enemies to married women? And does this still exist? So this is a super interesting topic to think about. And in terms of my own life, I would say I have a handful of really like 30-year friendships and some longer than that. And I don't think that I am the enemy. I'm pretty sure I'm Auntie Kristin because I'm still single, right? So like to their kids, I'm Auntie Kristin and I love that. And I know their husbands so well and they're super, confident in their relationship and everything. But I do feel that maybe with people that you don't know so well, single women are kind of outside of, there's like a club, like the married people's club, and then like the single people's club. And I do feel like that does still somewhat exist. And it's kind of sad to me. I wish it didn't exist, but I do think it's like very ingrained in society. And I do feel like there is this kind of expectation of coupledom. And Miranda is also going through this in the episode in a really fascinating way. So she wants to become a partner at her law firm. And this is the beginning of a theme that we see through the years of Miranda's kind of goal-oriented career, choices and trajectory, which I love, and that she's really focused and so committed and obviously so brilliant and great at her job. And she's just trying to make partner because that, of course, is a huge, huge accomplishment for a lawyer. And she feels, and in this episode, that she doesn't get invited to the dinners at the partner's house because she doesn't have a husband or a mate. So someone at her firm sets her up on a date at the softball game, and she goes to the softball game and it's a woman. And she's like, and she goes over and she says to the guy, like, I am not gay. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. And I remember this episode. I thought this episode was like season 3 or something. I did not realize it was so early in the trajectory of the whole show.
Jon Stewart is back at The Daily Show, and he's bringing his signature wit and insight straight to your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. Dive into Jon's unique take on the biggest topics in politics, entertainment, sports, and more. Joined by the sharp voices of the show's correspondents and contributors. And with extended interviews and exclusive weekly headline roundups, this podcast gives you content you won't find anywhere else. Ready to laugh and stay informed? Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome. My name is Paola Pedrosa, a medium and the host of the Ghost Therapy podcast, where it's not just about connecting with deceased loved ones. It's about learning through them and their new perspective. Join me on the Ghost Therapy podcast.
Whoa, my lights in my living room just flickered.
I'm a little nervous. I'm excited, nervous. I'm a very spiritual person, so I'm ready and open.
That was amazing. I feel so grateful right now. I got to speak to my great-grandmother, Abuela, and she gave me a lot of really good advice that I'm going to have to really think about.
Wow, okay. That's crazy. Yes, that is accurate.
Listen to the Ghost Therapy podcast as part of the My Cultura podcast network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wonder what it's like to be on the phone with an NFL general manager as you finalize the biggest contract in NFL history? I'm AJ Stevens, Vice President of Client Strategy at Athletes First, where we've negotiated $1.4 billion in current NFL quarterback contracts. Introducing the Athletes First Family Podcast, the Quarterback Series. Along with my co-host Brian Murphy, Athletes First CEO, we're pulling back the curtain on how these historic deals come together. You'll hear directly from the agents who shaped the NFL's financial landscape. The ones who negotiated Justin Herbert's extension and Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract that sent shockwaves through the league. This isn't just about the numbers, though. It's about the untold stories behind these massive negotiations and the relationships the NFL superstars like Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jordan Love have with their agents at Athletes First. For the first time ever, The agents who orchestrate these deals are sharing the details of the negotiations and everything that led up to their clients signing on the dotted line. Listen to the Athletes First Family podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What if you asked two different people the same set of questions? Even if the questions are the same, our experiences can lead us to drastically different answers. I'm Minnie Driver, and I set out to explore this idea in my podcast, Mini Questions. Over the years, we have had some incredible guests. People like Courtney Cox, star of the infinitely beloved sitcom Friends, EGOT winner Viola Davis, and former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair. And now, Mini Questions is returning for another season. We've asked an entirely new set of guests our 7 questions, including Jane Lynch, Delaney Rowe, and Cord Jefferson. Each episode is a new person's story with new lessons, new memories, and new connections to show us how we're both similar and unique. Listen to Mini Questions on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. 7 questions, limitless answers.
I remember this episode, and I remember asking, I don't even know if I should tell the story, but I remember asking Cynthia, how was it to kiss the woman? And she was like, eh. And I was like, really? Just eh? See, I hadn't been there, right? Because you're never really there for the romantic storylines of the other characters, So I pictured it being a real kiss. And when I rewatched it, it's really not a real kiss. It's like a peck. It's like a peck, in the elevator that you could have with like a friend. You know what I'm saying? So I understand from that perspective. But also, whatever, she wasn't attracted to that actress. No offense to that actress. But, I was like, Cynthia, are you sure you felt nothing? I mean, because, there's nothing wrong. Like, you could feel something. It would be fine. It could be sexy. I don't know. She was like, nah, nothing. And I was like, wow, okay, all right. So, of course, many years later, we would discuss that. But it was a great storyline and such a telling storyline in terms of, she's part of this law firm in New York. Law firms are not really a progressive place generally, right? And so this other lawyer thinks like, oh, I'm progressively going to assume that she's gay because I've never seen her with a guy, which is what he says, which is super fascinating. Like, what an assumption to make. Like, maybe she's just private, right? But he doesn't really consider that. He thinks he's doing her a favor by setting her up with this lovely woman. So she takes the lovely woman, even though she tells the lovely woman right away that she's not gay, she does take her to the dinner, and they do really enjoy having her, and she feels all sparkly that the partner's paying attention to her, and he walks her out, and she feels the need to, confess to him that she's not in fact gay, because I think he says something like, oh, you guys are so great, or something like that. And she says, oh, I just want to tell you, I'm not gay. I felt the pressure to bring a date, and I'm not really gay. And he goes, oh, my wife really wanted to add a lesbian couple to our friend group, which really, oh God, I really felt that also. Like, sometimes you do feel like you're like the token straight person that they invite, or like the token gay couple that they invite, to a more traditional type of a dinner party or whatever. And I feel like these things are still true. So I'm very interested to know if you guys think they're still true. Write me in some questions or some thoughts, because I want to see them. But so, okay, here we are. I got onto the Miranda storyline. So here we are. We're at the table. We're discussing the topic. Single people became the enemy to married women. Now, Samantha says married women are threatened because we can have sex anytime, anywhere with anyone. And they're afraid we're going to have it anytime, anywhere with their husbands. Now, maybe that's true. And I certainly feel at the party scene that's coming when Samantha is there talking to a guy who's in the financial world, and she's getting like investment advice, and his wife comes in and is like, you have to come out here right now. And Samantha's just like, like on her face. I mean, I just feel that in my gut, because it happens frequently to me where you're just standing there. You're just a single woman standing there at a party. You're not doing anything. You're not thinking anything. You're not trying to hit on anybody. You're just standing there, right? But some guy is talking to you, and then his significant other feels like, no, that's a threat. And that's in some ways just so kind of unfair. But then I also feel like it's so human. That's my single woman commentary on that. We get to Charlotte. Charlotte doesn't believe it that the married women and the single women are enemies. But she hates when she gets the poor single look at a party. Well, isn't that the case? I mean, I don't know if I personally get the poor single look anymore because I think everybody knows I'm single, or they think maybe they don't know exactly if I'm single or not. Who knows? But for sure, there are times when you are invited somewhere and they do not want you to bring in plus one, so you can't bring a friend and you're just there by yourself, and it's kind of hard. And people look a little bit like, oh, she's by herself. And it's hard. It cuts deep, those kind of looks. So I feel that, and we wrote this episode in 1998. So isn't that interesting? Still something that definitely holds up. So then the question is there a secret Cold War between marrieds and singles? I mean, I hope at this point that there is not a Cold War. Let's hope that we've come further than that. But I do feel that traditionally there is like a demarcation line, which is so unfortunate when people get married. I think it's less now. I'm not sure. But I feel like everyone is just human and doing the best that they can do. And, we should just have empathy for everybody. That's how I feel about it. But I definitely do feel that there is the pressure on probably everyone, but definitely on women, that you are supposed to find a significant other and or get married or whatever. And that if you do not, that people wonder what is wrong with you. I certainly have experienced this in my life. People are just like, why? And why should I have to explain to everybody why? It's hard to explain. I don't know why, for goodness sakes. If I knew why, I could just go out and fix it, I guess. But I mean, it was never my goal really to get married, as I said many times. And I have my kids and I'm super focused on them. And it is what it is. And everyone has their own journey. That's what I think. Okay, I have diverted into my own life. I am going to come back to the episode. Oh, then we get Stanford, which is always so exciting. And I love this scene on the street so incredibly much. So this is at a time when gay marriage was not legal. It was not legal until 2011 in New York City. So Carrie and Stanford are walking down the street and they're talking about how gay people are running off to Hawaii to get married, to have commitment ceremonies, right? And that they're wearing leis and everything. And Stanford says, I miss the old days when everyone was alone, which is so adorable. And then they run into this character called Luke and his boyfriend, Joe. And Carrie says, well, I haven't seen you since. And he says, since I was straight. And they laugh. It's like really entertaining. And then they think, they're like, oh, we have an idea. And my thought was, oh, they want to set her up with someone. And then they ask her for an egg for their baby, which is just like, wow, ahead of the times. Do you know what I'm saying? And she's like, huh? What? And Stanford, they're just like, what? What on earth? I mean, it was a lot. But let me tell you, this was happening. I've been asked many a time, okay? I have never said yes, but back in my 30s, I was asked a few different times, which is a very flattering thing to be asked, but also like a big leap, okay? It's a big leap. So anyway, then we cut to Samantha. Miranda's at the softball game, and we already discussed that. It's super adorable. They're in Central Park at the ball fields. Anyone who's been to Central Park has seen them. It's a great visual and such a New York thing to be playing softball, baseball on the weekends in Central Park. So then, she tells to Chip she's not married. She's not gay. And then Carrie has a thought. Married people don't hate singles. They just want us figured out. This is so true. This is Carrie coming with a very, very true thought, I think, still. Like they want to understand and they want to figure you out. And I do think they want to, quote, solve it, meaning they want to get you married somehow. I've certainly experienced this in life where people want to set me up. The married people want to set me up. They have a friend, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of pressure. So then Carrie has lunch with her favorite married couple, and they are amazing. They are super interesting and funny, and they're like just the best married couple. They're giving jokes to each other, blah, blah, blah. It's really, really funny. Then this friend shows up. So it was like a secret setup, which is not cool. My feeling is you need to tell people if you're intending to try to set them up so that they have some inkling of what is going on and can prepare their mental state for it, right? So this guy, Sean, comes. So he's like super interesting, and I do think he exists. I've had people tell me they don't think that this kind of guy who wants to get married exists. I 100% do think that they exist. I have definitely come across them in my dating life in the past. I think it's always a little bit, you're never quite sure if they're saying what they think you want to hear or if they truly want it. Like one time I was dating someone who could possibly be listening right now, and I went to the bathroom or something in his apartment. I came back, and on his laptop, he was on an app where it does like a baby. It takes a picture of you and him and makes a baby. Okay. And I was like, what on earth? Oh my God. What are you doing? And he was like, wouldn't our baby be cute? And I was like, oh my God, this is so surreal. So at the time, he was in his 20s, okay? And I was just like, does he really mean this? Like, this is bizarre. So I really wasn't sure. And we dated off and on for a couple years. He's a great guy. And then I'm not quite sure what happened, but I guess we were broken up, and I feel like I was working or something. And I was gone, and I came back, and he had a girlfriend. I ran into them in Whole Foods, and she was pregnant, you guys. And I didn't know it. I ran into them in Whole Foods. I was like, what? He really meant it. So they got married. They have 2 children. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I do think he really, like when he did this app that combined our pictures as a baby picture, he really had the male version of like, you know, wanting that baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, people have a time in their lives, I think, not everyone, of course, but some people have a time in their lives where that's just on their mind. I think it's like a, you know, genetics kicking in or whatever to procreate. And he was having the male version of that. And it was real. It was real. Now, this guy in the show, he has a bit of a different way that he goes about it. He's got this, you know, Classic 6. Is it Classic 5 or Classic 6? I think it's a Classic 6 apartment, which is right up Charlotte's alley, of course. She ends up with one, as you all know, but she doesn't have it yet. And he has a party. He invites Carrie. Carrie invites us because she's like, what am I doing here with all these married people? And he shows us around, shows us the room that will be the child's room, and then pulls out a baby mobile. And Carrie is like way turned off. And I'm just like, okay, Charlotte, not me, whatever, me, Charlotte. I'm just like, you know, he's going to ask you to marry him, which, you know, she's not wrong. He's got a tract, right? His track in his head is like, oh, I'm looking for a wife, and Carrie's a fantastic woman, and I want to marry her and have a baby, and her baby's going to live in this room with this mobile over his bed. You know, he's got his vision. So Carrie, of course, is like, I don't think that's me, because Carrie's trying to figure out who she is, which I really respect. And then she's like, hey, Charlotte, you know, maybe that guy is for you because this is what you want, right? So then Charlotte goes out with him, which I think is totally fine. Like if you have dated someone and you know they're not for you and you think maybe your friend would like them, I think that's very, very mature on Carrie's part and on Charlotte's part to be like, yeah, I do feel like this might work for me, so I'm going to give it a try. So Charlotte gives it a try. Kind of towards the end of the episode, which is like a little off on our timing, which is interesting. And then hysterically, they go shopping and look at China patterns, and she does not like his choice. So she's like, no, which I also think is so her and so really, really hysterical. Like everyone's like, Charlotte just wants to get married. No, not really. Because if you just like slightly the wrong China pattern, then she's like, out. Not you, which I think is hysterical, okay? And she says something like, he's American classic and I'm country French, I think. Is that what she says? And then if you remember later, we're going to go China shopping with Trey, which was one of my all-time favorite scenes. We were in Bergdorf's all day long, flipping plates over with a crane. We took a crane into Bergdorf's, and I had to flip this plate so that you could see both the pattern and the name of who made it, like maybe 36 times. That director, Charles McDougall, incredible director, maybe he flipped that plate like 30 times. It was really fun though. But so the China pattern is initially introduced in Bay of Married Pigs and carries through Charlotte's life. Like we still, when we're filming and just like that, Charlotte still has her beautiful china displayed in her big hutch in her dining room, and we get it out for special occasions. You're going to see it in And Just Like That. So the china is very important to Charlotte.
Jon Stewart is back at The Daily Show, and he's bringing his signature wit and insight straight to your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. Dive into Jon's unique take on the biggest topics in politics, entertainment, sports, and more. Joined by the sharp voices of the show's correspondents and contributors. And with extended interviews and exclusive weekly headline roundups, this podcast gives you content you won't find anywhere else. Ready to laugh and stay informed? Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wonder what it's like to be on the phone with an NFL general manager as you finalize the biggest contract in NFL history? I'm AJ Stevens, Vice President of Client Strategy at Athletes First, where we've negotiated $1.4 billion in current NFL quarterback contracts. Introducing the Athletes First Family Podcast, the Quarterback Series. Along with my co-host Brian Murphy, Athletes First CEO, we're pulling back the curtain on how these historic deals come together. You'll hear directly from the agents who shaped the NFL's financial landscape. The ones who negotiated Justin Herbert's extension and Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract that sent shockwaves through the league. This isn't just about the numbers, though. It's about the untold stories behind these massive negotiations and the relationships the NFL superstars like Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jordan Love have with their agents at Athletes First. For the first time ever, the agents who orchestrate these deals are sharing the details of the negotiations and everything that led up to their clients signing on the dotted line. Listen to the Athletes First Family Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome. My name is Paola Pedrosa, a medium and the host of the Ghost Therapy podcast, where it's not just about connecting with deceased loved ones. It's about learning through them and their new perspective. Join me on the Ghost Therapy podcast.
Whoa, my lights in my living room just flickered.
I'm a little nervous. I'm excited, nervous. You know, I'm a very spiritual person, so I'm ready and open.
That was amazing. I feel so grateful right now. I got to speak to my great-grandmother Abuela, and she gave me a lot of really good advice that I'm going to have to really think about.
Wow, okay. That's crazy. Yes, that is accurate.
Listen to the Ghost Therapy podcast as part of the My Cultura podcast network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What if you asked two different people the same set of questions? Even if the questions are the same, our experiences can lead us to drastically different answers. I'm Minnie Driver, and I set out to explore this idea in my podcast, Mini Questions. Over the years, we have had some incredible guests. People like Courtney Cox, star of the infinitely beloved sitcom Friends, EGOT winner Viola Davis, and former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair. And now, Mini Questions is returning for another season. We've asked an entirely new set of guests our 7 questions, including Jane Lynch, Delaney Rowe, and Cord Jefferson. Each episode is a new person's story with new lessons, new memories, and new connections to show us how we're both similar and unique. Listen to Mini Questions on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. 7 questions, limitless answers.
Oh, I totally forgot this whole storyline. Charlotte takes a drunken Samantha home, you guys. Michael Patrick and I talked about this a little bit. Obviously, really doesn't go that great when Charlotte takes a drunken Samantha home. And it's not the first or the last time that it's going to happen. And it's kind of in to me adorable because it is Charlotte's caretaking side. And it is like Kim is so funny in these scenes and so amazing when she decides that she would like to have sex with my very adorable Irish doorman, who I'm just like, why didn't we bring that guy back? He is incredible. What a great actor, like so good. And as Michael said, that was Nicole Holofcener's like superpower, was casting and getting just incredible performances out of guys in particular, but out of everyone really. And so this guy is just great. And he's got this brogue that is just dreamy. So Samantha goes out in her fur coat and her very fancy underwear. And Michael talks a little bit about how it doesn't actually make sense that she was wearing that underwear under that outfit. But this is one of the times when Pat was like, I don't care. She's wearing it. And Pat is 100% right. It's incredible when she goes out on Central Park West and drops her coat. It's beyond. So Samantha goes out there, propositions the adorable Irish doorman, apparently brings him up and has sex with him on my couch in Charlotte's apartment, which, look, this is the first time we've even seen a hallway. I didn't even know Charlotte had a hallway at this point. I only remember the 2 flats that were the corner of her bedroom, plus that bed. And there's a pink lamp, I think it's here, that I still have in my house today. That was like, Charlotte had like very few things in the beginning. But I go out into the hallway and I have a bookcase, which was great. And then I run into the adorable Irish doorman naked in my hallway. And Charlotte is just so... I make this crazy face at him. And I'm like, oh, gosh, because he talks about how he just wants to feel the touch of a woman, I believe. Something, it's just so adorable. But Charlotte's not very sympathetic, which is kind of sad. But, she likes rules, and this is breaking the rules for sure. So then he opens the bathroom door for her, which is funny and pretty strange. Like, if my doorman suddenly was showing up in my apartment naked, I would be shocked. That's true. I would definitely be shocked. So then we go back to Carrie. Carrie's breaking up with the Marion guy. Then Charlotte dates him, which is pretty funny. And then, the end. The end is so beautiful. So the end is when we film the scene that Michael Patrick and I talked about, which we have filmed over the years, I tell you, so many times. And I always love to film it. Like, we just filmed a version of this for And Just Like That. And it was just a beautiful summer night. And we're in a restaurant. And Carrie comes to join us after something major's happened. And we embrace her. And I just, every time we film it, I'm like, my heart is full with happiness. And this particular time, I think, is the first time we film it. So the nice thing is that it's the end of the episode that different things have happened to everybody. And it shows Carrie kind of walking down the street, and you hear her thoughts, of course. And then she kind of skips towards us in the really adorable way that Sarah Jessica does. And Charlotte, Samantha, and Miranda are waiting at the entrance of the movies. And also, trivia, in the background, you can see a poster for Godzilla, which is a movie that Matthew's in, Sarah's husband. And that was the movie that I feel like he might have been filming when I saw her. No, he was filming Inspector Gadget when I saw her, maybe. Or maybe Godzilla. I'm not sure. But anyway, her husband, Matthew Broderick, was in this movie, which is kind of funny that we put that there. I mean, maybe it was there already and we didn't move it. I have no idea. But she kind of runs to us, and then they pan up, and there's this fake full moon that is so cheesy and bad. But I know what we were going for, and it's adorable. But back then, we just didn't have a big budget, right? So, like, our effects and everything, much less grand than they are now. But it's really sweet, and it's so kind of cute. And I also just want to give a little word to the fashion in the show. So it's definitely starting to see Pat's influence in terms of definitely Samantha, not so much me. Like, I'm wearing this floor-length coat, which I do think I still have at home in my closet. And I'm wearing like a turtleneck. Oh, I remember this is when one of my favorite cast pictures was taken by maybe it wasn't our amazing set photographer, Craig Blankenhorn, who we still have. It might have been someone else, but we're on the street. We're wearing the outfits where I've got the turtleneck on and the coat. We're wearing kind of casual outfits in terms of how you think of us at the heyday, the heyday of Sex and the City. But we're standing on, I want to say 6th Avenue in the Village, and there's a lot of blurred out city lights behind us, and we're kind of looking off to the side. And I just remember it being one of those grabbed shots. We're like, everybody pose, look over there. And it's just a great, great picture where, like, we're kind of starting to gel, like in our how we are together, that the vibe is us together and out in the world, out in the city. And we're not really dressed up because we haven't really gotten in the groove of the fashion yet, but we're getting there, right? So, like, definitely Samantha, Carrie's definitely, you see Pat's influence. I don't feel like you see it so much with me yet. That's coming. It's a work in progress, I would say. But it's all interesting in terms of like, you know, what you think of. I think what people tend to tell me they think of with the show and the fashion is shoes and designer names and whatnot. That really wasn't the case in the beginning. And it really wasn't the case for any other television show. So it was something where Sarah Jessica already had these relationships with Calvin Klein. She wore Calvin Klein to the Oscars like many years before, you know, and she had developed these relationships and was very much an it girl in New York. They didn't have the kind of cachet that they have now in a certain way. Like they had it in New York, but not everyone knew about it because we didn't have social media, right? But Sarah Jessica was very much that. And she had those relationships. And I remember thinking, I need to do what she does. I need to try to make these relationships with designers that fit me, that I like, that are Charlotte-esque, so that I can ask them to borrow clothes for the show. So all of us were, I think, in my mind, all of us were trying to do that. And Pat Field was also kind of trying to develop the look of the show and at the same time develop the relationships with the PR offices of all of the designers so that we could borrow things because we couldn't afford all of those clothes and shoes and everything. We still can't really, but no budget of any television show is probably going to be able to afford that. But we were able to do it because we developed the relationships to borrow. And I only see the beginnings of that now when I'm looking back at the first season because Sarah Jessica already had those relationships and all of the rest of us are working on it basically. So that's something that I want to follow up on. I can't wait to talk to Molly Rogers, who's still our costume designer on And Just Like That. And she was Pat's assistant from day one. So I can't wait to talk to Molly about it. And maybe we'll have a whole episode about the clothes. That'd be fun. All right, Bay of Married Pigs. Tell me what you guys think. See you later. Next time. Bye.
Jon Stewart is back at The Daily Show, and he's bringing his signature wit and insight straight to your ears with The Daily Show Ears Edition podcast. Dive into Jon's unique take on the biggest topics in politics, entertainment, sports, and more. Joined by the sharp voices of the show's correspondents and contributors. And with extended interviews and exclusive weekly headline roundups, this podcast gives you content you won't find anywhere else. Ready to laugh and stay informed? Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What if you asked two different people the same set of questions? Even if the questions are the same, our experiences can lead us to drastically different answers. I'm Minnie Driver, and I set out to explore this idea in my podcast, and now Minnie Questions is returning for another season. We've asked an entirely new set of guests our 7 questions, including Jane Lynch, Delaney Rowe, and Cord Jefferson. Listen to Minnie Questions on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. 7 questions, limitless answers.
$1.4 billion in NFL quarterback contracts. The untold stories behind the biggest deals in football history. I'm AJ Stevens, Vice President of Client Strategy at Athletes First, introducing the Athletes First Family Podcast, the Quarterback Series. My co-host Brian Murphy, Athletes First CEO, and I are sitting down with the agents who have negotiated contracts for Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jordan Love. Listen to Athletes First Family Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The OGs of Uncensored Motherhood are back and badder than ever.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Mila.
And we're the hosts of the Good Moms, Bad Choices podcast, brought to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network every Wednesday.
Yeah, we're moms, but not your mommy.
Historically, men talk too much.
And women have quietly listened.
And all that stops here.
If you like witty women, then this is your tribe. Listen to the Good Moms, Bad Choices podcast
every Wednesday
on the Black Effect Podcast Network, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you go to find your podcasts.